My name is Joel McQuagge. I'm with the University of Florida Department of Animal Sciences, and today we're going to talk about ground handling. Ground handling is the appropriate class for both speed and ranch students to compete in and takes the place for those exhibitors of showmanship. So why do ground handling? Well, groundwork is the foundation for success under saddle. The maneuvers performed in the class are synonymous with the maneuvers performed in the undersaddle ranch classes and can even be applied to speed events. The purpose of ground handling classes are to test the handler's ability to communicate with their horse on the ground with a series of maneuvers that require the horse to yield to pressure and are relevant to everyday training applications. The purpose of this video is to provide examples of the maneuvers required for ground handling classes, how the classes are scored, what techniques are more credit earning, and more. This video is made with judges and exhibitors in mind. This video is made as a support to the rulebook. We strongly encourage you to read your rulebook and understand the class prior to showing.
We are going to begin by going over some maneuvers that may be asked of a ground handling class. Some of these maneuvers are very similar to showmanship, while others are quite different. We will begin by going over backing. First, we are going to start with an example of a credit-earning horse. This horse is moving off the rider with minimal pressure from the lead rope, and the handler is staying next to the horse when asking him to back. Another example of a backing maneuver in ground handling for senior 4-H'ers only is asking your horse to back away from you. As you can see, the handler here stays still while the horse backs away from the energy generated down the line. The horse then quietly comes back up to the handler and meets her with little resistance. We are now going to look at a second horse completing the same maneuvers. This horse is requiring more pressure and guidance from his rider in order to back. He is also slightly crooked. That back would be less credit earning than the last back because, again, he was crooked and required more guidance from his handler. We are again going to see this horse back by being sent away from the rider. While it starts relatively well, he does not stop when the rider asks him to, which would again result in a less credit earning back. Another way a horse may be asked to back in a ground handling pattern is to back in a curve or a circle. This is for senior 4-H'ers only. This would be a credit earning example of a horse backing a curve, as he again has minimal resistance from his rider and backs even and smoothly. Another thing 4-H'ers will be asked to do in a ground handling pattern is pivot or turn on the forehand. They will be asked to do this from the offside, the horse's right side, or the horse's left side. Here we can see this horse pivoting on his haunches, first from the offside and then on the horse's left side. While this is credit earning because the handler is providing little cueing, I would prefer to see his hind end slightly more stationary to earn more points. In contrast, this horse is requiring a lot of pressure from the handler's hand in his shoulder in order to pivot, which would not be as credit earning while it is legal. Here we see this horse pivoting on his front end, doing a turn on the forehand or moving his haunches away. Again, this horse is not requiring any pressure from the handler's hand in his barrel area and is moving around freely and willingly. This would be more credit earning than this horse, which requires much more pressure from the handler's hand to get him to move his haunches away. Again, while this is legal, it is not as credit earning. Senior 4-H'ers may also be asked to side pass their horse. They can again do this from the horse's left side or their right side. This is a credit earning example of horse side passing, keeping his body straight and her not having to push her hand much into his side, but more so keep a barrier with her hand to get him to side pass. Again, in contrast, this would be a less credit earning side pass as his hips tend to lag behind and she is having to push more into his side to keep his body moving. While this is still a relatively good side pass, it is not going to ever be more credit earning than the first horse where he stays straight and does not require her pushing into his side to do so. Another thing a senior 4-H'er may be asked to do is send their horse around some sort of obstacle. This could be, for example, a barrel or a cone. The handler should be staying stationary and their horse should be moving around them in a relatively large circle, and they should be able to do it smoothly without the rider having to encourage them to move forward excessively. The horse may be asked to do this either direction or even both directions in a pattern. This would be a credit-earning example of a rider sending her horse around a barrel and meeting back up with her again with little resistance. Another thing a senior 4-H'er may be asked to do in a ground handling pattern is extend the trot. Here we are going to see an excellent example of a horse going from a long extended trot, smoothly transitioning down into a regular trot. This would be a credit-earning maneuver. We are now going to show you some example patterns or goes so you can get a gauge of how things may be scored. Please pause on the pattern here if you would like to look over it and take notes on what is being asked. The first pattern we are going to be looking at is a ranch ground handling pattern. First impressions of this horse and rider is that they are setting themselves up well to begin and are attentive to the judge to start when nodded to. The horse then trots off extremely easily in sync with his rider and navigates the barrels with ease in an even, natural pace. This is an excellent maneuver, and you could +2 or +2.5 this maneuver easily. The horse stops promptly and backs slightly slow, but straight. I would +1/2 the stop and back. The horse then transitions to a 90-degree turn on the forehand, which is correct, +1/2. The side pass is straight and prompt, moving off with little cueing, +2 to the side pass to the right. The horse then walks up to the judge to set up for an inspection. It is important to note that in ground handling, that the judge will not walk fully around the horse for the inspection, just about 90 degrees. We are looking for the horse to stand still and attentive, and the handler to show off the horse to the best of their abilities. They do so here, and I would +1 this maneuver. I would only 0 this turn on the haunches, as he should have taken one more step to complete that 90-degree turn. However, he trots off from the offside very well with a true extension of stride, making this a very good maneuver, and +2 for his final maneuver, making his total a 78.5 and a very good ranch ground handling go. The second pattern we are going to look at is a speed ground handling pattern, which is usually slightly easier than a ranch ground handling pattern. This horse starts with his feet still, ready for the judge to nod them on. However, he is slightly sluggish to walk off, which I would just 0 the first maneuver. I would also 0 him being sent around the barrel, as he does drag his nose over the barrel. He trots off promptly, however, his ears are back and his head is slightly turned toward his handler, resulting in me not being able to give more than a +1/2 for this trot. He stops well, but unfortunately his head is turned and he requires more pressure from the rider from her hand and does not complete the full 90-degree turn on the forehand, so I -1/2 that maneuver. He then walks up to the judge a little bit more briskly than our first walk and stands very quietly for the inspection once he gets set up. This allows the rider to show him to the best of her ability. I would +1/2 this inspection, as he is patient and waiting for his next cue, which is him lowering his head. He does that with minimal resistance and drops his head adequately. He then backs again with minimal cueing, however it is slightly sluggish. Even so, it was correct, I would +1/2 it. As he extends his trot away, it is a true extension of stride and he moves well with his rider. I would +1 it, though, because he is grumpy in comparison to the last horse, making his total a 72. And that wraps us up for our Ground Handling 101. We hope this was informational and that you learned a lot from this video. Thank you to all those who helped make this video possible, and we look forward to seeing you all at horse shows in the future in our ground handling classes.